President, I ask that the call of the quorum be vitiated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, as I've done for the last several weeks, I'm back again for this week's Waste of the Week, another installment of a series of pointing out how we can save taxpayer dollars by looking at waste and inefficiencies, duplication, and other factors that simply is a waste of their money. In April, because this is April, because it's just a day after that fateful day in April, April 15th, we all know what that means, our Waste of the Week involves the tax code. Now, clearly, there is a growing consensus that our tax code is hopelessly complex, hopelessly burdensome, hopelessly anti-competitive, and needs comprehensive reform. That's not what we're here today to talk about, but I'm a strong proponent of moving that forward. It's been almost 30 years now. It's 1986 when the last comprehensive reform was enacted by Congress. It turned out to be a tremendous stimulus to our economy, a boost in growth, a boost in the economy in a way that provided us with the necessary funding without having to raise taxes, and in fact lowering taxes because of its dynamic effect. Well, that's an issue for another day, and we continue to try to pursue that. As a member of the Finance Committee, I know that's one of our major goals this year, as it is in the House of Representatives, and whether we're able to achieve it or not, we need to keep working on that. But today, I want to talk about the Waste of the Week in looking at the tax code and doing something I think would be relatively easy and simple to save the taxpayer some dollars. It involves the refundable tax credit. The tax laws allowed a refund, which is not an offset of taxes owed, but an actual direct payment that occurs if you have children. The refundable child tax credit is pretty straightforward. It qualifies a taxpayer of up to $1,000 credit per child, depending on their income level. I'm not here today to talk about the merits of that tax credit. I have supported it in the past, and I think it's something that ought to be given serious consideration in any kind of tax reform. But rather, I'm here to discuss the cost to the American taxpayer due to the improper use and payments that are made to recipients that don't qualify legally for this refundable payment. According to the IRS Inspector General, the Internal Revenue Service paid out at least $5.9 billion in improper payments, payments that went to people that did not legally qualify for the benefit. Listen to what Russell George, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, said. The IRS has continually rated the risk of improper additional child tax credit payments as low. However, he said, our assessment of the potential for improper payments in this program indicates that it is an improper payment rate similar to that of the Earned Income Tax Credit. What is that, the rate? About nearly $6 billion, and even more than that over a period of time. It is imperative, he said, that the IRS take action to identify and address all of its programs that are high risk for improper payments. So today we're talking about one of those programs that Russell George, the Treasury Inspector General, defined that we ought to take a look at, and we'll be looking at some others later. It's a pretty easy fix here that we are proposing, and I am supporting legislation that would require the submission of a valid Social Security number in order to claim the refundable portion of the child tax credit. Requiring the submission of a valid Social Security number doesn't take the credit away from anyone who legally qualifies for this credit, but it does help ensure that only those who are truly legally qualified benefit from the credit and receive the payment. Now, according to the most recent estimate by the Joint Committee on Taxation, this simple fix, just simply requiring a valid Social Security number before a payment is given so that we can weed out those improper payments, this simple fix could save taxpayers, it's estimated, by the Committee on Taxation $20 billion over a 10-year period of time. Now, compared to our multi-trillion-dollar budget, $20 billion is a fairly small percentage. But compared to what the way the taxpayer looks at this, $20 billion is a lot of change. It's a lot of money, and savings for that can be used in any number of ways, hopefully to lower rates that people have to pay in terms of the taxes they send, tax money revenues they send to Washington. But if it's needed for essential programs, such as national defense or homeland security, if we can prove a need for that, we're constantly looking for ways to pay for things that are essential and need to be done. This is a perfect pay for. So one way or another, it's a benefit to the American taxpayer. As we mark Tax Day this week, I wish we could say we're getting close to major tax reform, but we also, and since we're not, it's important that we continue to look at the tax code as well as other functions of government to determine how we can continue to save taxpayers money and how we can continue to identify unfair and complicated areas of our tax code. So with that, in fact, I forgot to put up my weekly Waste of the Week poster, and now we add to that, which is growing every week that we identify a program. We started all obviously at zero. The next tranche goes on to here, and we're approaching, as we see, $50 billion of savings for the taxpayer. The goal is $100 billion. We would like to extend this chart, and we're going to keep doing this week after week after week, and we're going to keep adding to this gauge the addition of money that is identified by our own accounting agencies, by our government neutral, politically neutral accounting efforts. We're going to keep adding to this gauge until we reach our goal and hopefully go well beyond it. Mr. President, $20 billion is no small amount of change. It's being used improperly. We can save that money. Stay tuned for next week's Waste of the Week. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of quorum.